Some betrayals don't come with slammed doors. They come quietly, dressed in routine, wearing the same smile, speaking the same promises. This is the story of Rachel Monroe. In the fall of 2021, Rachel was 34 years old. She lived on the east side of Milwaukee, quiet neighborhood, second-floor walk-up, nothing flashy. She worked full-time as a dental hygienist at a private clinic and picked up weekend shifts at a pediatric dental office. She wasn't rich, but she was stable, practical, grounded. She budgeted down to the dollar, planned her meals in advance, and paid her bills before they were due. And she believed she was building something bigger, something lasting with a man she loved. His name was Damian Cole. They weren't legally married, but in every way that counted, they lived like husband and wife. They shared groceries, shared a bed, shared holiday plans, family visits, and whispered late-night dreams of their future home. You know the kind. The one day we'll have a porch kind of dreams. According to Rachel, they had a goal. A house. Something to call their own. And beginning in the summer of 2018, she did what a committed partner would do. She started sending Damian $1,200 a month into what he called the down payment fund. He was the one who handled the account. That's just how they'd arranged it. Damian had a persuasive, confident way of explaining things. Mortgage strategies, market trends, interest rates. He'd break it all down while Rachel took notes, grateful for a partner who seemed to understand the system better than she did. He'd occasionally show her screenshots of the balance. They even browsed Zillow listings together. There were no joint accounts. The savings were under his name only. But Rachel didn't question it. Why would she? He was the man she trusted, the man she was building a life with. She stopped taking vacations. No more weekend getaways. No more new dresses. No birthday splurges. She canceled her gym membership, started meal prepping religiously, and worked every extra shift she could get. Friends noticed she was exhausted. She told them it was worth it. She and Damian had plans. At home, they didn't upgrade their furniture. They didn't buy a new TV or eat out unless there was a coupon involved. And she took all of that as a sign of discipline, a shared vision. But while Rachel was grinding herself into the ground, Damian was living a different story, one Rachel never saw coming. Damian traveled often. He said he worked freelance, logistics, events, whatever paid, mostly in Chicago, sometimes Detroit. He'd be gone for 3 or 4 days at a time. He always had a reason, always had a plan, always made it sound like it was for them. And Rachel believed him. Because when you love someone, when you trust them with your future, you believe. But on the night of September 23rd, 2021, something happened. Something that would crack open the entire illusion. Rachel was sitting on the couch, browsing YouTube on the smart TV. Just background noise, looking for something to wind down with. And then, she saw it. A video thumbnail. A perfect day in Stillwater. A wedding video, all pastel tones and smiling guests. Drone footage over a lakeside venue. She almost skipped past it. Almost. But the man in the gray suit on the thumbnail. He looked familiar. Too familiar. She clicked, and the screen opened onto a sunny altar. White folding chairs, soft violin music. And Damian Cole, standing there, saying vows. Holding hands with a woman in a white dress. Smiling like he meant it. Surrounded by applause, rings exchanged, kisses captured in slow motion. The video had been uploaded just 3 weeks earlier. The wedding was recent, real, lavish, and completely unknown to Rachel. She froze, heart pounding, mouth dry. She rewound the video, played again and again, each time hoping, begging, that maybe, somehow she was mistaken. She wasn't. Her husband, the man she'd trusted with 4 years of her life and nearly $56,000 of her money, had married another woman in Stillwater, Minnesota, 3 weeks ago. And just like that, the illusion was shattered. But this was just the beginning, because Rachel had questions, and Damian had even more secrets. How do you breathe when the air of your life turns out to be a lie? That night, Rachel Monroe sat on the floor of her apartment, stunned. The living room, once warm with shared dinners and Sunday laughs, felt suddenly foreign. Empty, cold, like it didn't belong to her anymore. Because the man she thought she knew, the man she trusted with her heart, her future, and her money, had just been married. to someone else. And he hadn't said a word. No explanation. No warning. Just a lie, so vast, so calculated, it eclipsed everything she believed was real. Rachel barely slept that night. The YouTube video kept looping in her mind. Damien at the altar, smiling, kissing that woman, Vanessa Reed. A woman Rachel had never seen, never heard about. But now, suddenly, everything was about her. By morning, Rachel knew what she had to do. She opened her shared banking app and began pulling records. All the monthly transfers she'd made since 2018. Every $1,200 payment, each logged and time-stamped. A silent history of her commitment. Her sacrifice. But something wasn't right. There was no account linked to her name. No balance. No access. Just a void. So she called the credit union Damien had always named. And that's when she heard it. Ma'am, that account was closed. Several months ago. Closed? Without her knowledge? Without consent? Her stomach dropped. The money, all $55,800, was gone. She sat still, the phone trembling in her hand. And then rage. Pure, electric, heart-splitting rage. That evening, Rachel waited for Damien to come home. When he walked through the door, she didn't yell, didn't scream. She looked him in the eye and asked, simply, "Did you get married?" And he didn't deny it. He didn't stutter, didn't flinch. He just sighed and said, "It's complicated. You don't understand everything." Complicated? Is that what betrayal is now? He packed a small bag, calm, mechanical, and within minutes he was gone. Gone from the apartment, gone from her life. By the next morning, every number she had for him was blocked. Texts went unanswered. Calls rang into the void. And with that, Rachel was alone. Alone with no closure, no apology, no explanation. Just an empty apartment and an even emptier account. The betrayal wasn't just romantic. It wasn't just financial. It was total. Because she had trusted him fully. She had built her life around a shared dream. One she believed in so deeply, she restructured everything for it. Worked more, spent less, pushed herself to the edge so they could build a future. But Damien had been building something else entirely. Not a home. A lie. A lie so intricate, so polished, it survived 4 years undetected. And now, when Rachel needed protection, when she turned to law enforcement, she was met with yet another heartbreak. At the Milwaukee Police Department, she filed a fraud report. She brought everything. Printed statements, text messages about house hunting, even a screenshot of the wedding video. And still, the officer explained it was a civil matter. There's no written contract, he said. No signed documents. No proof of coercion. In other words, no crime. Just misfortune. Rachel stared at him, stunned. You mean to tell me that giving money in a relationship, even under a false promise, wasn't a crime? The answer was devastating. Not unless there's fraud on paper. And just like that, her heartbreak had no legal standing. Her pain had no police report. Her trust, shattered, was now her burden to bear. But Rachel Monroe was not going to disappear quietly. She had been conned, used, financially groomed under the mask of love. And if the system wouldn't pursue it, then she would. There's a kind of silence that follows betrayal. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that screams in your ears. Rachel Monroe stood in the wreckage of her life. Not physical wreckage, no. The walls were still standing. The couch was still there. The bed still made. But everything had changed, because now she knew the truth. And the truth was louder than anything Damien Cole had ever said. She had given him 4 years. $55,000. And every piece of herself that mattered. And in return, he vanished. Not just from her apartment, but from every platform, every phone number, every way she'd ever reach him. He didn't just walk out. He erased himself, like she had never mattered. But Rachel? She wasn't about to let him disappear so easily. With no help from police and no charges filed, she turned to a different kind of weapon. The truth. She hired an attorney, Marsha Levin, a civil fraud specialist from Milwaukee. Someone who didn't flinch at emotional cases. Someone who believed financial abuse could ruin lives just as much as physical violence. Rachel walked into that law office with a binder of documents, bank statements, text messages, Rent receipts, screenshots, dates, promises. Everything was cataloged. Every lie time-stamped. During their first consultation, Marcia asked her one question. Do you think he ever loved you? Rachel didn't speak for a moment. And then she said quietly, he made me believe we were building something together. That's worse than not loving me. That's manipulation. Marcia nodded, because she'd heard it before, just never this complete. Their legal strategy started with a truth Rachel didn't want to believe. This wasn't just a broken relationship. It was a con, a deliberate scheme by a man who knew exactly what to say and exactly when to say it. With help from a contact at the Minnesota clerk's office, Marcia confirmed that Damian Cole had legally married Vanessa Reed on August 29, 2021, just weeks before Rachel found the wedding video. Vanessa, it turned out, was no fleeting mistress. She was the legal wife, a business owner, someone with her own tax ID, her own catering company, her own public life. And in that public life, Damian wasn't Damian. He was Dre. Rachel created a burner Instagram account and began scrolling through Vanessa's posts. She watched, in silence, as a parallel world unfolded before her eyes. There was Damian Dre, lighting a backyard grill in matching robes, putting together a crib, smiling at holiday dinners. In one post, he was stringing up Christmas lights. In another, kissing Vanessa on New Year's Eve. It was a life so carefully staged, it made her stomach turn. Because while she had been scrubbing kids' teeth on weekends and skipping vacations to save money, he was out there living a Hallmark movie with someone else. And she was just the funding source. Rachel began collecting evidence. Every photo, every caption, every timestamp that overlapped with the lies he'd told her. While he claimed to be in Chicago for work, he was actually at a pumpkin patch in Minnesota. While she waited for him to return from a logistics event, he was celebrating Vanessa's birthday with champagne and a spa weekend. Her anger grew sharper, not just heartbreak, but cold, calculated fury. She realized something even more sinister than she feared. Damian wasn't just lying. He was duplicating lives. And she wasn't the only duplicate. Soon after, a Reddit thread caught her eye. My ex scammed me into saving for a house he bought with someone else. Anonymous. But the details? Uncannily familiar. Rachel's lawyer cross-referenced it. And what they found was chilling. 2 other women came forward. Both had been in long-term relationships with Damian under different names. Jared Miles, A.J. Carter. Both claimed they were told to contribute to a shared future. Both gave thousands. Both were ghosted. One even had a child, a little boy who called Damian Dad. Now the truth was undeniable. This wasn't a one-time lie. It was a pattern. A multi-state, multi-year, multi-victim fraud, disguised as love. Rachel's attorney took action. They filed a civil suit for financial fraud, misrepresentation, and unjust enrichment. They opened asset discovery requests. They subpoenaed Damian's telecom records and tracked every name he had ever used. They dug into his LLC, Nord Stream Event Logistics, which turned out to be a shell company. No office, no website, no license, but it did have bank activity, and that activity led to a duplex purchase in Stillwater, a leased SUV in Vanessa's name, and paid ads for a fake marketing business, all funded by the money Rachel thought was going toward a house for them. This was no accident. This was no misunderstanding. This was orchestrated deception, a romance built like a business, with women like Rachel used as unwitting investors. And the man behind it all? He was still out there, but not for long, because the net was closing in, and the next time Damian Cole showed his face, it would be in handcuffs. A con artist doesn't need a mask. He just needs your trust. And Damian Cole? He wore it like a second skin. By the time Rachel Monroe realized who and what he truly was, he was already living a full, separate life, with a wife, a house, and a carefully curated identity that had fooled everyone, including her. But now, the illusion was falling apart. And Rachel? She was done being quiet. With her attorney's guidance, Rachel began building a digital timeline, a forensic reconstruction of every lie, every trip, every dollar. They combed through phone records, credit transfers, text logs, social media tags. The deeper they looked, the darker the picture became. Damien hadn't just created a second life. He had constructed multiple realities. His phone activity showed simultaneous location pings in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Calls to Rachel made while his other phone sent sweet nothings to Vanessa Reed. Yes, 2 phones, 2 lives, 2 women, all carefully managed like spinning plates he thought would never fall. They traced his shell company, Nord Stream Event Logistics. On paper, it was a legitimate operation, a business address, a bank account, a registered LLC. But in reality, it was smoke and mirrors. No physical office, no employees, no clients, just a single purpose: move money around without detection. Money from Rachel, money from others, funneled, laundered, spent. The LLC was used to lease a luxury SUV, driven by Vanessa, unaware of the lies powering the engine. It paid for partial ownership in a duplex in Stillwater. It funded mobile ads for another fake consulting company registered under yet another name. The account linked to Rachel's savings closed 2 months before the wedding. The money withdrawn in chunks, moved across accounts under aliases and business fronts. Gone, just like that. But Damien didn't just disappear. He evolved. Under pressure from legal filings and growing online whispers, he left Wisconsin altogether. And for a while, there was nothing. No Instagram, no email, no trace. It was like he dissolved into thin air until a new Instagram profile surfaced in late November at AJ_Morris_TX. The username meant nothing at first, but the photos? They told a story. Sunset selfies on Houston rooftops. A smiling man sipping craft cocktails in a linen shirt. Vacation images. Co-working spaces. Motivational quotes about reinvention and starting fresh. The face in those photos? Undeniably Damien. Except now, he was Anthony Reed. Another name. Another lie. But the most chilling detail? He wasn't alone. In several posts, a young woman appeared beside him. Late 20s. Happy. In love. She had no idea. Rachel's attorney contacted federal investigators. By now, the case had gained traction, not just online but within the legal system. The Wisconsin Bureau of Consumer Protection opened a formal inquiry. And with multiple women confirming similar experiences across Illinois, Georgia, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. This wasn't a personal tragedy anymore. This was a federal fraud case. In early April 2022, a joint task force led by the U.S. Marshals and Texas authorities tracked Damien to a suburban condo in Katy, Texas. At 6:40 a.m., agents knocked on the door. He opened it. No resistance. And when they searched the home, what they found? It was damning. 5 active cell phones, 3 passports, 2 forged, encrypted hard drives, SIM cards, prepaid debit cards, fake business records, a locked briefcase filled with handwritten ledgers, names, dates, and dollar amounts. On one page, 2 sets of initials. RM, $55,800. VR, duplex down payment. Clear as day. A list of victims. A record of every lie in his own handwriting. The woman he was living with? She cooperated fully. She thought they were engaged. She had no idea about the marriage in Minnesota, or the crimes in Milwaukee, or the web of women stretched across 4 states. She said he was planning to move with her to Colorado. She was ready to build a life with him. Another woman, another future, another lie. Damien Cole, or Jared Miles, or A.J. Carter, or Anthony Reed, was arrested and taken into federal custody. He was charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. He was extradited to Wisconsin. And when Rachel Monroe heard the news, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat in silence. Because she knew this was just the beginning. One victim is a tragedy, but multiple victims? That's a pattern. And once Damien Cole's name hit federal records, or rather, the many names he used, the floodgates opened. It started with a Reddit thread, posted anonymously, but the title said everything. My ex scammed me into saving for a house he bought with someone else. The story mirrored Rachel's experience almost word for word. A charming man, promises of a future financial partnership, and then vanished. Rachel's attorney was watching, and within 72 hours, two more women reached out. The first was from Illinois. Her name was changed in court records. We'll call her Tina Lewis. She'd met Jared Miles, Damien's alias at the time, on a dating app in 2016. He was smart, gentle, family-oriented, said he wanted to settle down, start fresh. They dated for nearly 3 years. Tina shared photos with Rachel's lawyer. Birthday parties, weekend trips, matching t-shirts, even a framed ultrasound. She had been pregnant once. Her young son, now 2 years old, still called Damien Daddy. The second woman, from Georgia, went by Danielle James. She knew him as A.J. Carter. Same tactics, same charm, same empty promises. She'd given him $17,000 over 14 months. Thought it was for launching their business. But the business never materialized. Neither did Damien once the money dried up. Each story came with receipts, wire transfers, screenshots, emails. The lies were layered, but unmistakably identical. He promised love. He promised family. He promised a future. And then he disappeared, leaving his victims heartbroken and broke. The attorneys acted fast. Rachel's legal team amended the civil complaint, expanding the charges to include identity misrepresentation, wire fraud, and unjust enrichment. The Bureau of Consumer Protection widened its scope. Investigators began mapping the timeline, not just where Damien had been, but who he had been. They identified at least 6 women across 4 different states, each one with a near-identical story. And still, there may be more, many more, because Damien was a ghost in the system, a man of many names, many faces, many masks, and each one told a woman what she wanted, needed to hear. The evidence grew thicker. Federal investigators obtained Damien's telecom records, financial accounts, and LLC registrations. They tracked how he opened accounts under slight name variations. Damien Cole, A.J. Carter, Jared Miles, Anthony Reed, all linked to the same Social Security number, all used to create the illusion of legitimacy. The banks showed a flow of funds through multiple institutions, credit unions, prepaid cards, digital wallets. He was careful, but not perfect. Some transfers led directly back to Rachel's original down payment account. Others paid for the Stillwater duplex, the one he shared with Vanessa Reed. Still others funded digital ads and website hosting for his fake consulting business. Every dollar Rachel gave him, accounted for, used, exploited, not for a future they built together, but for a fantasy he built for himself, on the backs of women who trusted him. And the sickest part? He didn't stop, even while the investigation was underway. Even while victims were coming forward, he was still out there, playing house with another woman in Texas. His next chapter, like a spider, weaving new lies before the last ones could even rot. Rachel watched this unfold with a strange mix of fury and relief. Because now she knew she wasn't crazy. She wasn't overreacting. She wasn't emotional. She wasn't too trusting. She was targeted, and she wasn't alone. In an interview with her attorney, Rachel said, "He made me feel like it was my fault, like I should have read the fine print on love. But love doesn't come with a contract. Love is supposed to mean safety, security, shared dreams." And Damien Cole had twisted it into a weapon. For Rachel, this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about accountability. And for the first time in a long time, it was finally coming. By the spring of 2022, the man once known to Rachel Monroe as Damien Cole was no longer just a ghost. He was a fugitive, a con man with aliases scattered across the Midwest, and a growing list of victims now willing to speak his name out loud. He wasn't just a liar. He was a predator. Federal prosecutors had seen enough. The mounting evidence, the financial records, the text transcripts, the forged documents, pointed to something much darker than a romantic deception. This was interstate wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, financial exploitation on a calculated, methodical level. And the man behind it? He was slipping through fingers fast. But he wasn't invisible. Not anymore. because people were watching. And one of those people was Tina Lewis, the mother from Illinois. In a moment of intuition, she searched online for keywords tied to one of his older aliases. A.J. Carter Event Consultant Houston. What came up stunned her. A Facebook business listing. No photos, no phone number, but a tiny link. ajreedmarketing.com. She clicked, and there it was. A grainy headshot, a motivational quote, a vague business description, helping clients scale digital presence through precision strategy. But the man in the photo, Damian Cole, using yet another name, Anthony J. Reed. Same face. New lie. She took screenshots, called Rachel's lawyer, and within 48 hours, federal agents had zeroed in. Using digital surveillance tools, the U.S. Marshals tracked a signal tied to one of Damian's phones. It pinged consistently from a gated condo complex in Katy, Texas, west of Houston. The name on the lease? Anthony Reed. Signed with a forged driver's license, a fake business registration, even a new tax ID. The digital paper trail was enough. And on April 12, 2022, at 6:40 a.m., federal agents moved in. They expected resistance, but when they knocked on the door, he opened it, calm, expressionless, like he knew the end had come. Damian didn't run. He didn't beg. He didn't say a word. He was taken into custody without incident. What they found inside was damning. 5 mobile phones, 3 passports, 2 of them confirmed fakes, a briefcase, locked and stashed behind a storage panel. Inside, printed ledgers, names, initials, dollar amounts. Next to the letters RM, $55,800. Beside TL, $23,000. And next to VR, duplex/SUV lease. Each page was organized with frightening precision. Dates, amounts, city names. This wasn't emotional chaos. It was a business model. Agents also uncovered multiple prepaid debit cards, unused SIM cards, encrypted USB drives, template lease agreements, fake LLC documents, notes describing relationship entry points and exit plans. One document, titled Strategic Partner Funnels, laid out the psychological profile of targets. Stable job, no financial oversight, low conflict history, ready for long-term planning. He had studied these women. This wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate, cold, strategic. And then there was her, the woman he was living with. She was in her late 20s, worked remotely, believed they were engaged. He'd told her they'd be relocating to Colorado by fall to start fresh. He'd even spoken about starting a family. When she learned who he really was, what he'd done, she broke down. But she cooperated fully, gave investigators text messages, email chains, even photos from their engagement weekend. She had no idea she was the next name in his ledger. Back in Milwaukee, Rachel Monroe got the call. Damian had been captured. No struggle, no chase, just caught. And yet, even then, she didn't feel joy. Not really, just a heavy, exhausted relief. It was over. He was booked at the Milwaukee County Jail, charged in federal court with wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, financial exploitation, use of falsified documents in furtherance of a crime. Bail was denied. Flight risk was obvious. So was the danger he posed to others. In the courtroom, Rachel sat silently, her eyes locked on Damian as he entered in restraints. He didn't look at her, not once. He didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge her, didn't speak, just stood there, like a man made of wax. Outside the courtroom, prosecutors addressed the press. This is a case of systematic deception, they said, a financial abuse disguised as love, and it represents a growing form of exploitation we can no longer ignore. And they were right, because Damian Cole wasn't just a fraud. He was a wake-up call. July 12, 2022, Milwaukee, Federal Court, Eastern District of Wisconsin. The courtroom was packed. Victims, journalists, attorneys. Some came for closure. Some came for spectacle. But one woman sat in the front row, still and silent, her hands folded in her lap. Rachel Monroe, the woman who started all, the woman who believed and was betrayed. Damian Cole, or A.J. Carter, or Anthony Reed, or Jeremiles, depending on which mask he wore, stood shackled in a gray suit, flanked by two marshals. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. Not Rachel, not the judge, not the jury, but every eye in that courtroom was locked on him. This wasn't just a trial. It was a reckoning. Federal prosecutors opened with a simple truth. For nearly a decade, the defendant used love as bait and money as the prize. They presented their case methodically. Evidence flowed like water. Bank statements, wire transfer logs, subpoenaed phone records, screenshots from romantic messages, Instagram posts from multiple aliases, forged documents, and LLC registrations. A visual map tracking his movement between Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Georgia, and Texas. The jury watched as flowcharts showed how women's money passed through shell businesses, into property purchases, into luxury car leases, into him. And then they called Rachel Monroe to the stand. She stood calm, no trembling hands, no breaking voice. She looked straight ahead and told the truth. For years of shared groceries, dreams of a home, whispers of a future, $1,200 every month, given with love, with hope. All of it a lie. She recounted the moment she saw the Stillwater wedding video, the confrontation, his vanishing act. She detailed how she uncovered the other identities, how she turned from victim to investigator, how she fought to be heard, and when the defense tried to shake her. Did you ever sign a contract? Were you forced to give him money? She didn't flinch. She simply said, he didn't need force. He had my heart. The next day, Vanessa Reed, Damien's legal wife, took the stand. She told her side of the story, how she met Dre at a food expo, how he swept her off her feet, how they married in August 2021, how he used her catering company's tax ID to open credit lines. Without her knowledge, she showed the jury texts he sent her just days after ghosting Rachel, planning baby names, looking at strollers. The betrayal was layered, multiplied, unforgivable. When asked if she felt she ever truly knew the man she married, Vanessa paused and said, not even close. Two more women testified. Each described the same arc. A charming man, a shared dream, monthly contributions, and then silence. One woman had her identity stolen. Another found her name attached to a fake business loan. The jury sat in stunned silence. This wasn't seduction. This was structure, a system of lies engineered with disturbing precision. Forensic analysts showed the contents of the briefcase seized from Damien's Texas condo. Spreadsheets, initials, dollar amounts, some marked closed, others active, others still pending. It was a con built like a CRM system. But instead of clients, it was victims. The defense tried to soften the blow. They argued that there were no written contracts, that no force was used, that Damien was overwhelmed, not malicious. They painted him as a troubled man who fell into lies to survive. But the jury didn't buy it, because what kind of survival requires faking entire identities, marrying multiple women, stealing their futures, and writing it all down in ledgers? No, this wasn't survival. This was strategy. By July 25th, the evidence had been heard. The witnesses had spoken. The lies had been untangled. At 1:37 p.m., the jury entered deliberation. By 6:42 p.m., they returned. Guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, interstate financial exploitation, fraudulent use of falsified documents. Damien Cole didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't move. He stood still as the judge thanked the jury, then scheduled sentencing for September 19th. As marshals led him away, Rachel watched him go, expressionless. Her nightmare wasn't over, but finally had a name. And soon, it would have consequences. September 19th, 2022, Milwaukee, sentencing day. Rachel Monroe didn't prepare a speech. She didn't write a letter. She didn't need to. Her words had already been spoken. In court, in depositions, in every document that unraveled Damien Cole's carefully crafted illusion. Now, it was time for someone else to speak. The judge. Damien sat expressionless as Judge Rebecca Lynn Holm read aloud the sentence. 18 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent. No gasps. No cheers. Just the weight of justice finally landing. The judge cited the scope of Damien's deception as justification. This was not a single lapse in judgment. This was a chronic, deliberate exploitation of human trust across multiple states. She noted the strategic, emotional grooming, the use of falsified identities, fabricated businesses, and multi-victim targeting. Over a span of nearly a decade, there would be no leniency, no probation, no second chances, because Damien Cole had already used up every ounce of trust this world had to give. The court ordered $223,000 in restitution, split among victims: Rachel Monroe, Vanessa Reed, Tina Lewis, Danielle James, and 2 others whose names were sealed at their request. The money, however, was largely unrecoverable. Much of it had been moved through closed accounts, prepaid instruments, or laundered via fake companies. Rachel would never see her $55,800 again. But money was never the point. Truth was. Accountability was. Damien didn't speak during sentencing. No apology. No explanation. Just the same blank mask. Rachel later said, "I didn't need an apology. I just needed him to stop hurting people." And now, he finally had. In the weeks that followed, Rachel began to rebuild. She vacated the apartment they once shared, moved to Madison, closer to family. She changed all her banking institutions, took time off from dental practice. For the first time in years, she breathed, not because the pain was gone, but because it was hers now, not borrowed from a man who never earned it. She declined all media interviews, but she agreed to record a podcast episode anonymously. It aired in January 2023. No video, no music, just her voice. In the final segment, she said, "You think love makes you safe, but real love doesn't need secrecy. Real love doesn't ask for silence." That episode reached tens of thousands of listeners. And for many, Rachel's voice became a rallying cry, a call to recognize financial grooming for what it is: abuse. With encouragement from her attorney and other survivors, Rachel joined the Wisconsin Coalition for Consumer Justice. She helped draft educational materials on financial manipulation in relationships, spotting coercive behavior, the legal gray zones of non-marital partnerships. And she wasn't alone. In March 2023, she participated in a closed-door legislative roundtable with consumer advocates, attorneys, and state representatives. Their goal? To introduce new protective legislation, the Partner Exploitation Awareness and Recovery Act. The bill would provide legal recognition for financial abuse in romantic relationships, expanded fraud definitions for non-marital domestic partnerships, support funding for victims. The bill passed committee review in mid-2024. Rachel didn't attend the signing ceremony. She said she didn't need to watch a law get passed. Living it was enough. Meanwhile, Damien Cole was transferred to a federal correctional facility in Illinois. Due to the nature of his crimes, identity fraud, multi-state victimization, and use of false documents, he was placed under restricted communication protocols. No internet access, monitored phone calls, all outbound correspondence reviewed. He was no longer allowed to reinvent himself. He was no longer allowed to vanish. And yet, the investigation wasn't quite over. As of early 2025, authorities in Ohio and Georgia were still reviewing cases that resembled Damien's pattern. Same lies, same names, same digital fingerprints. Which begs the question, how many women were there? How many lives did he walk into and walk out of with their trust in his pocket? We may never know. But for Rachel Monroe and the women who stood beside her, the important part wasn't how many. It was that someone finally said, enough. In spring 2025, a major streaming platform greenlit a docu-series inspired by the case. Working title: 2 Lives, 1 Lie. Producers requested Rachel's participation. She declined. Through her attorney, she issued a short statement. "I don't need to watch a fictional version of something I survived. I don't want to see it reimagined. I want it to be over." And who could blame her? Some people want justice. Some want closure. Rachel? She just wanted peace. because for years she believed she was building a life, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, dream by dream. But all the while, the man beside her was building something else entirely, a lie, one so carefully designed, so painfully detailed, that it made her question her own memory, her own heart. But now, years later, after the ledgers and the courtrooms and the cameras, one truth remained. She survived. She told her story. And in doing so, she ended his.